everyone. My, how quickly people tend to forget these days. I don't know what's up. Is it something in the water? Is it the massive amount of information, or should I say disinformation or propaganda, whatever, right? That we're inundated with on a daily basis? Is it the lack of proper critical thinking skills that's not being promoted throughout the education system in this country? Like I say, there's lots of reasons. Imagine it's probably a multitude or a combination of those multitudes of reasons that has contributed to this modern form of economic amnesia, right? I don't know. I just can't understand. Now, to me, it was such a huge deal. It was like, yeah, I'm not going to forget this. Matter of fact, I do recognize and acknowledge I was one of the very few people who were actually out there front and center talking about this stuff, whereas the rest of my fellow Canadians, not just those in the media, the political class, but even just average citizens were, falling for the rhetoric or just going along to get along in terms of what happened after the financial crisis, or even what led up to the financial crisis. And I keep hearing today, and I'm going to be referencing an article, this one at Globe and Mail, praise being heaped upon Stephen Harper because he, come out and wrote a book or did some kind of interview, was interviewed by someone where he's basically going around saying, oh, this is what Trudeau's doing wrong. Oh, this is what's going to happen in the future. It's like, well, yeah, you started it all. This is the thing that's driving me nuts. People out there, see, Stephen Harper was right. It's like, well, yeah, he was the guy that started the economic intervention on such a rampant scale after the financial crisis that bailed out not just the auto industry, but the banksters, the big 6 banks in this country. And once again, yeah, when you're talking about the housing market and not just the economic malfeasance, but a lot of areas of the economy where, the young people are suffering, but the old establishment's doing fine. Well, that's what it is the old establishment was bailed out. Right? The younger people didn't experience no benefit from that. Matter of fact, if the housing market had a crash in this country, younger people would have been able to buy a lot of homes at fire sale prices, right? So once again, it's all about perspective. And I do recognize it's typically boomers who are the ones who are promoting or supporters of Harper. I suppose they're looking and seeing themselves in that proverbial mirror type of thing, right? But once again, I can't help but remind them, not just the massive amount of economic intervention that once again propped up the system and actually created, not just created and sustained the bubble, right? And the 1% and against the have-nots, the haves and the have-nots, and all that growing divide. He contributed to that greatly, as we've seen in enough years. A decade has gone by. We've seen, look at how much what he did contributed to this massive divide and this massive strife, which is why someone like Trudeau even come to power in the first place, right? Same thing down south with Trump kind of deal, right? Everyone's looking, whoa, we got to do something to get out from under this mess. They're looking for a savior, right? And the Canadian people, I don't know why, I don't know, name recognition, I guess, but obviously they don't read their history. Thought, I don't know what Trudeau was going to come in and do better. Once again, what it comes down to me is it doesn't matter if it's Harper or Trudeau or anyone. Central planning is a big old fail. It has proven to be so. Countless examples. I mean, they're piled up, stacked to the ceiling, the examples of central planning failure. But yet, once again, people continue to, like I say, amnesia. It's something in the air, something in the water. I don't know. Oh, and in addition to that, let's not forget about the fact that he's also the guy that brought about and introduced Bill C-51, which gives the government the ability to spy on and snoop on and surveil average Canadians, right? Under some false pretense or whatever pretense they want, because that's the way these laws, rules, and regulations are written, just so they give them a carte blanche ability to invade the privacy or spy on whoever they damn well please. And we're seeing that ramped up under the Trudeau Liberals. But once again, who started that, right? Who was the one that first dug their toes in or the heels in and entrenching the state into the private lives or the personal lives of Canadians? Yeah, once again, Stephen Harper, the guy that these conservatives seem to love so much and want to come back. Thanks, but hell no, thanks. Headline out of the Globe and Mail, Stephen Harper warns gulf between privileged and working class needs to be addressed. This is a report by Robert Fife, Ottawa Bureau Chief, and Stephen Chase, Senior Parliamentary Reporter. March 12th, 2021. Former Prime Minister Stephen Harper says the year-long global pandemic has exacerbated the gulf between cities and the majority of working people, whom politicians are ignoring at their peril. Speaking of the Ottawa Conference on Security and Defense, Mr. Harper said the economic dislocation from COVID-19 is far worse than the 2008 '09 financial crisis he faced as prime minister because the income inequality has increased significantly over the past decade. Once again, you're the one that contributed to that. It was your policies. It was your bankster bailouts and the auto bailouts and, however many other bailouts that most Canadians aren't privy to, right? Well, the greasing of the palms. And it's not just that. We know central planning, big government, and the corporate lobbyists. You are the folks who have contributed to that. The free market didn't do that. You did that. Actually, it's the absence of a free market that has allowed all of this to take place. In a free market, a true free market environment, the bad actors would have been weeded out and new entrants and up-and-comers would take their place. But like I say, now the old establishment wanted to maintain the old establishment. And of course, Stephen Harper back then would use the excuse, well, we just have to do it. If we don't do this, right, the sky is falling, Chicken Little, right? Oh, the sky's falling. If we don't do it, we're all going to, the whole economy is going to collapse and we're all going to, I don't know, whatever, right? Well, Trudeau's doing the exact same thing. Matter of fact, he ripped the page right out of Stephen Harper's playbook and is spewing the exact same rhetoric. Well, we just have to do it, right? We have to spend hundreds of billions of dollars to prop up Canadians and introduce this quasi-socialist system in this country. Why? Using the same rhetoric and excuse as Stephen Harper did. So, to me, it's like, not one or the other. Like I say, I don't play on either side of that lib-cod duopoly. I'll point out the failures of both. Elites are thriving and large segments of the rest of the population are not thriving, he said. The increase in income and wealth for the highest echelons of society has been unprecedented, frankly, since the age of the robber barons. So he knows about the robber barons. Hey, Ayn Rand talked about that a lot. What would have Ayn Rand said in terms of after the financial crisis? What would have been her advice there, Stevie? Let the market weed things out. Let the bad actors fail miserably. Let that that's how you learn, right? That's how proper lessons are learned. Let bad actors, the bad participants in the economy or society, let them suffer. And, at the very least, that has an incentive for them to try to correct, right? Or do something different going forward. But what we've seen today is bailouts. It's just, we'll just go back to doing the same thing, which is except not just the same thing, but basically the same thing on steroids. Because, hey, it worked the first time, right? So we're going to try it again. Once again, so much fail. Vast segments of working and middle-class populations in many Western countries have experienced stagnant incomes and even fallen standards of living, Mr. Harper said. The pandemic has made the gap even wider despite billions of dollars of government assistance to help people cope with the economic shutdown. Despite, right? Or maybe as a consequence or result of, holy, like I say, so much fail. He also drew a distinction between public servants and private sector workers. To be blunt, if you're a public servant, for the most part, you're getting 100% wages for not going to work. And if you're a fairly large corporate employer, the central bank has been buying your bonds and making sure your business is sustained in all kinds of ways. But if you're a small business, you have probably gone bankrupt. Right? Of course, the guy knows what he's talking about. He literally, like I say, he knows this is true. So I'll give him credit here. But the reason why he knows this is because it was his policies and his intervention in the economy that created this, right? So of course, right, he was the intervener, and he's the one that caused this problem. So of course he understands the problem. I mean, hello, right? And I mean public servant. As a politician, right? You mean people who function off the forced wealth and income redistribution? People who aren't actually accountable or who, bottom line, are actually affected by any of this stuff? Yeah, no shit, Dick Tracy, right? No shit, Sherlock, I should say. Blue-collar and service workers have been relying on government support checks to survive, he said, as well-off segments of Canadian society are able to prosper and save money. Although he did not offer any policy solutions, exactly right, I could. It's called allow the market to work properly. Take the grips off the power and the control mechanisms of the economy, and once again, that's the recipe for success. But once again, big government hacks, like Stephen Harper, so-called or alleged conservatives. Yeah, conservatives in this country, alleged. Not only they're alleged, but rare. So rare indeed. They're like some of these species of rare animals or birds that like you hear tell of them. Like, have you ever actually seen one? Mr. Harper said the gap separating the haves and have-nots must be addressed or it could lead to social upheaval. The burden has been borne by distinct segments of the population. This is exactly the problem that caused populist upheavals in the last decade or so, and I predict is going to cause even greater upheaval as a consequence as we come out of this, he said. And that the technological revolution that is underway needs to accommodate the economic needs of working people. Mr. Harper devoted most of his comments to China, which he called a global threat to Western democracies, while under the one-man leadership of President Xi Jinping. Well, I agree with him. China is a big threat, but so is politicians, central planners that are the mirror images of their Chinese counterparts, such as Stephen Harper and the Trudeau liberals, right? Come on. Anyways, folks, I'll place a link to this article in the description of the video, or the video below. I'm moving on to the next one. It's Canadian Libertarian, and I love liberty.